Ah, so if you're at home, we've used our notes. We went in, took chapter 15, section 1 quiz on Canvas. So then that way we were caught up for the day. We did talk about number 3 and that the Mediterranean Sea was in relative location to Northern Africa. So that way for number 3 on your quiz, you're good to go. All right, for today, we're going to look at 4 questions that are on the board. But first, we kind of need to talk about, was there something that you wish you could have gone back and written in your notes to help you with that quiz, or were y'all pretty good? Pretty good on there? Okay. So if you're good, continue kind of doing what you're doing on there. If you need to make a little bit of adjustments to make sure, that one's kind of stair-stepped along with all the black subheadings that were there to create your own notes. Today, you're going to get a little bit more freedom of range to where it's not going to say you have to do this subheading, this subheading, this subheading. So you'll kind of, have an opportunity to miss some things that are in there, but you also have an opportunity to write down as much as you want to make sure that you have the main idea. And it kind of gives you an idea of what to write down for the main idea by using those black subheadings that are there. So today we're going to continue with chapter 15, section 2. You don't have to use your book yet, but we will be on page 413 here in just a little bit. Okay. So the first question, it says, agree or disagree with these statements. All right. The first one, salt and gold have been important trade items for thousands of years. Now, you can shake your head yes, shake your head no. You can raise your hand. If you want to add to why, that's even better. I'm calling a couple of you just to say, your opinion was this. Why do you think it was better? Okay. So there we go. Posting. Why is it yes? Well, one for salt. Okay. So salt, because of today's 1,000 years away, athletics is the reason why salt is there. Why is salt important? Yes. Because back then it preserved food. Keep you hydrated. Yeah, hydration and preservation. That's the big deal to that. All right. So if I told you, and I've said this before, but the idea that salt was as valuable during this time period as diamonds and gold. Okay. Imagine going to Cotton Patch today, pre-COVID, hopefully post-COVID at some point. There's always salt shakers on the table. There's always pepper shakers on the table. You didn't see ladies going in there and opening up their purses and sliding that salt shaker into their purse and running out of Cotton Patch, did you? Okay. What if somebody laid a bar of gold on the table? You think it'd make it past the end of the day? Probably not. Okay. It wouldn't make it past the end of the day because it's very, very valuable. All right. Somebody wants it. It has a need. There's too much of a temptation to be able to access that. Salt, not so much. So the other example is you walk in your front door when you get home from school, you walk straight to the kitchen, and where's the first place you generally go to? I know Butchie goes there. Okay, the pantry or the refrigerator. Okay, why do you go to the refrigerator? Yeah, there's food there. Okay, and the food is preserved. Okay, it is kept good. It is kept good longer. Okay, Landry had a. This is off the topic, but I'll tell you this one. So you got your milk jug. Now we have where, of course, it has expiration dates on it. It's printed on there. All that good stuff. Did you ever know what the circle's there for? Okay. Okay, so before they had expirations on it, and it was actually on the deal for saying it was bad, if the milk went bad, like the gases and stuff that would build up in there would pop it out. And that little bubble that was inside of there would turn out to a poof on the outside, and that would mean that your milk is bad. So if you had it sitting in there and you're like, oh, the deal's popped out, you didn't have to open it and smell it or know that there was shaking around with like old nasty clumpy milk. That's gross. But it popped out of there. So a little side fact that Landry had over a Christmas break. I had to Google that one. But the idea of preservation was big for salt because no longer did you have to go hunting every day to get your calories. Okay. You could hunt, salt your food, preserve it for a trip when you're nomadic and you're moving, and that food would last longer. You also weren't burning calories to gain calories and washing out as even. you could burn calories, gain food, and actually eat the whole animal, all right, over multi families as far as that goes, as compared to having to eat it that day and sustain that food for multiple days. Okay, so preservation was really, really big. Gold was huge. You'll get into the idea of who Mansa Musa was. Pretty interesting character, decked out in gold from head to toe. Okay, went across on a journey on a voyage to kind of promote his area for trade, for commerce, for diplomatic relations. And as he went along this area, he handed out gold to people. And those people, of course, were praising him. There was also people that wanted to know where he got that gold from. Of course, whenever he was so proud of his area, he told everyone. The next thing you know, people that wanted to take that gold from him came to conquer and went through. So that also brought some trouble to his people. But you'll learn a little bit about Mansa Musa in there. The other part, it says Europeans, number 2, came to Africa. All Africans were already at peace. Agree or disagree? Before Europeans came to Africa, all Africans were at peace. Shake your head, yes or no. Okay, Peyton, what do you think?
I feel like it's different, like tribes
Mm-hmm.
have conflicts, like fighting over like land or something.
Uh-huh.
So I don't think they're all at peace.
Just like an example of yesterday. Are we ever at peace? No, nobody's ever at peace, honestly. I mean, there's times of peace, but you're not always at peace. Okay. So like what Peyton's saying, tribes disagreed with each other. Okay. If you go to, and I will talk about this on the third one. But the idea of having peace, no. When we get into the idea of African slave trade, there had to be two to tango. It wasn't just the Europeans. They weren't coming inland and going and savaging tribes and bringing them back out and selling to slavery. There was tribes selling tribes because that got rid of the problem. It also made them money in their hand. Okay, got them new things to trade. We'll talk about that later on whenever we get into the Atlantic slave trade. But there was conflict. It wasn't all the time, but there was conflict between tribes. Okay. Number 3, a stateless society. We went over that yesterday. One without a ruler is full, that's the key word, of conflict. Is it always full of conflict? Okay, I got a no. Got a couple no's right here. Clancy, why is it no?
Because, well, for me, if my mom is stricter, then I want to not listen.
Okay.
So I think if they had like a little bit more freedom, they would like realize how much better it is to like not have conflict.
Okay, so think of this though. Full means like the cup overfloweth. There's too much. So that means it's always in conflict. All right. Is it always in conflict? No, there's good times. You know what I mean? It's kind of like if you go to your family Christmas. Sometimes there's 13 cousins and aunts and uncles and grandmas and grandpas, and everybody's happy. And then sometimes Uncle Billy has a trouble spot, and next thing you know, everybody's fighting and arguing with each other. All right. Christmas is good, Christmas is bad. You know what I'm saying? So sometimes it's really good and sometimes it's not. Just because they didn't have a ruler, we learned yesterday that they relied on each other and they had a committee, and then they had their elders that represented what they were doing. So there was some positive. It wasn't always conflict. Last one, number 4, Islam spread through Africa because of conquest. So to me, that's saying only because of conquest. So fighting, defeating, and winning wars. Is that the only reason why Islam spread? Might have some of this right here. Okay. Yep. In Africa is what we're looking for. What do you think? There's not a right or wrong answer as long as you can defend it. You think that was the only reason why Islam spread? It's a lot of the reason, right? Okay. So what are some of the other reasons why it did?
Maybe some people accept it.
Okay. Just because they wanted to, right? When we talked about this in World of Religions, I often wonder what religion people would be if they were born somewhere else in the world. You know what I mean? Would you be the same religion you are now? More than likely not, because it would be dictated by environment and it would be dictated by culture that you're around. You know what I mean? At least the start of it would be. So Islam honestly was spread a lot by conquest because you either fought and lost and converted, or you paid a tax, remember, to be able to stay. Your relative faith, that was the idea. Or you could have picked it up based upon trade. So they traded from one place to the other, And then because of that trade, the idea was promoted. The idea, why are you wearing this? How do you have this? Well, I'm part of this religion. So therefore we have this kind of intricate network that we can kind of go through. So people converted because of that. They also converted because they wanted to. Maybe there was a better way of life that was out there. It was more appealing to them to be part of that religion. So that kind of gives you an idea. So those 4 examples are going to be some of the key points that go in the section today. It talks about North Africa, kind of starts sliding over to West Africa, a little bit below the Sahara Desert. The Sub-Saharan and the Sahel is going to be a big kind of topic of conversation in today's, but those are kind of 4 main points to make sure you have in your notes. All right. So what you should have for your notes, and I know if you're online, you got to read that backwards. But today's notes and how you take your notes is just kind of like this. There's a main idea. The main idea for the entire section is that there was 3 major empires of Western Africa. Okay, that covers the whole basis of all of what we're writing today. The visual information, there's a map that's on there, so it shows me that there's 3, Ghana, Mali, and Songhai. Okay, the support and connected. Songhai was the largest territory that was there. Okay, so I have a main idea. I can break it down into red subheadings. I can break it down to black subheadings, however much note you want to write. It's up to you. I can find if there's a visual information, whether it be a picture, whether it be a graph, map, chart, anything that's there. And then I'm going to write a support or connecting item that goes with it. If there's not anything visually, then leave it blank, but connect it together with your main idea that's there. Okay. This is on page 413, chapter 15, section 2. Tomorrow when you roll in, got a quiz. You can still use your notes. You can go through. Everything's good to go on that. All right. Anybody have any questions? Good to go. All right. Roll on.